All right, good afternoon, everyone. Let me acknowledge the people that are on the dais with me. Chief David Brown, First Deputy Tony Riccio, and myself all just came from a small celebration with the CPD leadership to honor this man right here, Interim Superintendent Charlie Beck. This is a bittersweet moment for all of us. 20 weeks. That's how long Charlie's been here with us. Interim Superintendent Beck answered the call to service when our city really needed him. And though we knew his time here would be brief, and his wife Cindy was sure that we remember that, that doesn't make this moment any easier. Despite his official title, there was nothing interim about his time here. In those 20 weeks, he's prioritized efforts to fulfill our obligations under the consent decree, strengthen our department's organizational structure to put resources and personnel back into our neighborhoods and our police districts, and help lead our city through one of the biggest challenges we've ever faced and that we continue to face, which is battling the COVID-19 virus. And all the while adhering to the highest levels of leadership and professionalism every single day he was here on the job. When I first announced the interim superintendent's appointment, I called him, quote, proven, singular leader with a strength and vision to lay the foundation for the changes our city need as we move forward with our search for the next permanent superintendent. Over these past 20 weeks, Interim Superintendent Beck has done that and so much more. Helping set up the other visionary leader standing with me, Chief David Brown, who will now serve as acting superintendent as he begins his own tenure here in our city. There's simply not enough words for me to express what I personally feel about Charlie Beck's contributions to Chicago. Only that we owe him a debt of gratitude for his incredible service. Now, maybe my last time calling you by this title, let me just say this. Superintendent, we love you. And though we're all happy to see you return home to your family and your well-earned retirement, I want you to know that you will always have a place here in Chicago as you embark upon the next chapter of your fantastic journey. Thank you. And with that, I welcome First Deputy Superintendent Tony Riccio to the podium, who really also has been a tremendous leader of the department during this time, during a time of challenge for the department, during some tough times for him personally with the loss of his beloved mother. Tony Riccio has stood tall in this moment, and I am deeply, personally grateful for everything he's done to keep this department moving forward. First.
Thank you, Mayor Lightfoot. Chief Charlie Beck came to Chicago with a difficult challenge. He was tasked with being transitional, but he was far from someone who simply occupied the superintendent's office. And while Chief Beck's stay was brief, his impact was significant. When he came to Chicago, he brought with him a fresh perspective and 4 decades of law enforcement experience to an already amazing department. From the onset of his tenure, Chief Beck worked hard to take a department that had incredible successes and prepare it to succeed even further into the future. Chief Beck didn't come in dictating new directives or seeking to erase the proud history of our department. He sought input from every level of this department, from me to the newest recruit. He listened to the concerns of officers and members of the community that we serve, and then worked side by side with his command staff to solve problems and implement lasting change. During his short time here, Chief Beck made a point of visiting almost every one of our stations, riding the public transportation system, patrolling the toughest neighborhoods in the city, and even riding along with the CPD bike unit. When Chicago was impacted by the COVID-19 outbreak, Chief Beck made it clear that our priority was to ensure that every member of this department was safe and equipped as well as possible. Today, he returns home to be with his wife, his children, and his grandchildren. Chief, it was a pleasure to serve beside you, and I wish you all the best in the future. I'm now pleased to present Chief Beck with a couple tokens of our appreciation for his time here in Chicago. First, presenting him with a certificate of appreciation on behalf of the Chicago Police Department. We thank you for your Finally, we have an inscribed baton. Superintendent Charlie Beck, the Chicago Police Department, dated today, 15 April 20, and I'm proud to present this to you as well. It's now my pleasure to present for the last time at this podium the Interim Superintendent of the Chicago Police Department, Charlie Beck.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Tony. Thanks, Barb. So this is very bittersweet. Obviously, I cannot wait to go home to my family, who I miss very much. I've been separated from them totally since the virus impacted all of us. So I'll be very glad to see them. But I'm also leaving family behind. Even though I came to Chicago without knowing virtually anybody that was in the Chicago Police Department, I leave feeling very much connected to them and very much as part of the CPD family. I've been a cop for a very, very long time, and ingrained in me is running to our brothers and sisters when they're in trouble. You know, when officers request help, and when they request assistance, we do anything to come to their aid. And I felt that way when I came to Chicago. I saw a good department with a proud tradition, with incredibly talented men and women in a time of crisis. So to be able to help them through that time, because I want to be very careful how I say this, I didn't get them through the time, I helped them through the time. And get them on the road to success was the honor of my lifetime. And I have to say, I've said this before, and I will reemphasize it today. I wouldn't have come if it wasn't for Mayor Lori Lightfoot. She is a tremendous mayor, and I've worked for many. Chicago is blessed to have her. And even though she is a taskmaster for this police department, you are, she loves it, and she wants it to be better. And she wants it to be able to make an impact on this city that lasts forever. So we tried to set the department up so it could do that. I think that with the leadership that is in place now, thanks to people like Tony Riccio and Barb West over here, that the department is in good hands. And making that even better is the mayor's selection of David Brown. Now, Chicago will get to know David Brown in the same way you got to know me, only at a much deeper level, because he'll be here for a long time. And you will find out about his story. You will find out about his personal dedication to law enforcement. You will find out about his love for cops and his love for truth and his love for justice. And I think that's what Chicago wants from the leader of the Chicago Police Department. Somebody that calls the balls and strikes, that stands up for his cops when they're right, and recognizes when they're wrong. Somebody that tells the truth to power while treating his own power as if it was a very delicate flower that could be crushed by overuse. And I think that's what you'll get from David Brown. I couldn't be prouder to leave CPD in brief time I've been here in such good hands. Many things left to do. Virus yet to fight, crime to be impacted, changes to be made, but he's the right man for the job. And with that, as they say, I'm going to present the ring, only this time it's not a ring, it's a star. David? This is your superintendent's badge. Wear this with pride. Always wear it, recognizing that you work for 13,600.
Thanks, Charlie.
All right, brother. David's going to say a few words.
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you, Mayor Lightfoot. Good afternoon. I want to begin by saying first, thanks to the First Deputy Superintendent Anthony Riccio and Deputy Superintendent Barbara West for setting up a solid foundation for me that means continuing to make Chicago a safer and stronger city while strengthening the bonds and trust and service. Chief Beck implemented a sweeping restructuring of CPD designed to give the full complement of police resources to neighborhood patrols. He also navigated COVID-19's outbreak in his 5 months in Chicago. I'm eternally grateful for his service, personal sacrifice, and above all else, his friendship and support. Charlie, your confidence in me means the world. Let me just add, the policing mind of Charlie Beck is deep, it's wide, and it's quick. And I will ensure that what he's begun to set in place, in motion, here in Chicago, flourishes and reaches its full potential. By now, most Chicagoans know my story. It's a story that has been written entirely in Dallas, Texas. It's a story of a young man who was born poor and left college during his senior year. I left to join the Dallas Police Department because I saw an opportunity to have impact on my neighborhood. My story is one of a beat cop who knows what it's like to work a midnight shift and come home to a family who misses you. I also know the pain of losing a child and the struggle of caring for someone with mental illness. I know firsthand what it takes to climb the ladder within the police department, only to be faced with the hardest of decisions. Today I begin a fresh chapter, and it will be written here in Chicago. I again want to thank Mayor Lightfoot for the opportunity to add to my story. This is a city of tremendous promise. It's this promise that drove so many dreamers from the South to the shores of Lake Michigan during the Great Migration. Chicago has made good on its promise for many throughout history. People have come here seeking to better themselves, and they have succeeded through hard work and sacrifice. But for some, the promise of Chicago never quite materialized, no matter how hard they tried. And for many, the promise of Chicago now seems out of reach. So today I come to you with a promise to work hard every day to make this city a safer place. This means working in every neighborhood, on every block. I promise to work side by side with residents and police officers to find solutions to this city's toughest problems. We need to find a way to end violent crime that has plagued Chicago for far too long. Every resident of this city deserves to go through their day without worrying about becoming the next victim of a robbery, a carjacking, or a gunshot. I am confident that by working together, we can get there. I led the Dallas Police Department to 50-year lows in violent crime and overall crime. We achieved this by working with church groups and neighborhoods, increasing transparency, investing in training, and making community programs a priority. This is the formula I plan to bring to Chicago. I hope to weave the strategies I've learned in my 3 decades of policing into the fabric of the Chicago Police Department, along with the reforms spelled out in the consent decree. These court-mandated reforms are meant to rebuild trust between police officers and the people we serve. Thus, the goal of the consent decree should be the goal of every officer that wears a CPD star. Corona-19 presents me with my first challenge, of course, obviously. I again want to thank Mayor Lightfoot, Chief Beck, and all the officers we have worked so hard during the pandemic. I am eager to get to work. We need to keep the public both healthy and safe. Any good leader ought to be able to chew gum and walk at the same time. Chicago skyline may be a world away from the Lone Star State of Texas, but starting today, Chicago is now home for me and my family. And I promise to never stop working to make it a safer place. Thank you.
Podium's a little big, but also I think I can see you down there. Any questions?
Hi, Mayor.
How are you?
Pop my head up a little higher here. Procedurally, can you walk us through what the next steps will be to fully appoint Acting Superintendent Brown?
Sure. We have the ability to appoint him as acting. That's formally being done. My understanding is that the Public Safety Committee of City Council will hold a confirmation hearing for him this coming Monday. And then, assuming he passes out of that, and I hope he will, of course, there'll be a full vote at the City Council meeting next Wednesday.
This question's from WBEZ, Patrick Smith, for Acting Superintendent Brown. WBEZ heard from multiple people in Dallas who praised a program you helped design in which paramedics and social workers went out with officers to mental health 911 calls. Do you plan on bringing a program like that here to Chicago?
Yes, that's the Right Care program that they're mentioning that related to responding to mental health crisis calls. Chicago currently has a program in place that we can always improve. Whether that program is a fit for Chicago, we'll make sure that the men and women of Chicago embrace any changes that we make. But again, any way we can improve our responses to all different types of crisis moments that people have in the neighborhoods, we ought to be doing.
Thank you. And this question's for the mayor from WGN Radio from Ryan Burrow. On a lighter note, the Chicago Bulls' Zach LaVine takes on Chicago Sky's Allie Quigley in a game of horse that airs on ESPN tomorrow.
And what happened?
Who do you got?
Hey, Allie quickly, I think. Oh no, she beat somebody else. Look, I've watched her and I've watched him. I wouldn't count her out. I mean, she is a tremendous sharpshooter. Originally from Joliet, went to DePaul undergrad, played overseas, and it's been here playing for the Chicago Sky for some time. So, sorry, Zach, my money's on Allie.
Question from Craig Dillamore. The incoming police superintendent, is he at a disadvantage with a virtual confirmation, being unable to look the alderman and the public in the eye?
You know, I guess I'll take that for you, right? I don't think so. The interim superintendent Brown spent a lot of time when he was last here in Chicago reaching out to individual members of the city council to introduce himself to them, to get their feedback on things that they were seeing in their wards and advice on things that they saw. So that work will continue. Obviously, one of the key things about really building lasting relationships is spending time with someone face to face. But I think under the circumstances, he's done a very, very good job of doing that kind of outreach. Really, I think people have gotten a very good flavor for who he is. And as Superintendent Beck said, he's going to be here for the long haul, so they'll have plenty of time to take their measure of him and build those important relationships.
Last question from A.D. Quigg at Cranes. Can you update us on as to how many people are using the hotel beds the city helped secure?
I don't have a specific number at the top of my hand, but we can certainly get that information to you. What I will say is keep in mind why it is that we initially stood up those hotel beds. At the time that we started that process, we were very much concerned about hospital capacity, and we wanted to be able to have the hotels initially available to handle any surge that the hospitals themselves would not be able to handle, and have what we call low acuity, meaning patients that we're really needing a little extra time and care, but not with the intensive oversight that they would get in a hospital. So we've seen some people come from the hospitals into that space. In the interim, as you well know, we also made available hotel rooms for our first responders. I believe that those have been very well appreciated. And in addition to that, we've stood up hotel rooms to also give respite to our healthcare workers. But we can get you the specific numbers. But I think the point of this is building a infrastructure of care to support healthcare workers, first responders, and those for whom, whatever reason, need to stay in isolation or quarantine before they're able to go back home to their families. All right, thank you all.